everyone, it's Melanie here, and long time no speak. And I have tried to make a video, but it was just not happening. Like, I recorded, I think, on the one day last week, I did about 4 attempts, and it was just a mess. And then on the other day last week, I did, oh God, it must have been 7 or 8 attempts. And it just wouldn't video. You know, I mean, it did video, but, you know, when you just can't do a video that is, I mean, my production value is not that high, but you know what I mean, when it makes no sense and it feels weird and it doesn't feel quite like yourself. So that was last week. So I decided to give it another go today and talk to you a little bit. And let's see where we get with this. And I thought I'll knit a little bit on my beginnings of a jumper. So as you can see, it's a top down, you know, kind of jumper. And I'm using 2 strands. I'm using up wool basically. So so this is a DK and this is a fingering weight. And I'm knitting those together. And then I have loads of other wool where I also will have a DK and a fingering. And it's going to be a little bit crazy and wild. The aim is to have a jumper that is quite warm. I've also been sewing. There is a nearly finished shirt for the husband out of some Ankara fabric, and I only have to put the buttons on, but I'm debating about the buttons. It may have to buy some buttons because I'm not quite sure I have the right white buttons, but I thought I'd sleep on it and then I'm going to look again through the button box. I need 6 buttons, so we shall see. Anyway, I thought I'd come on today and talk a little bit about cozy mysteries and knitting, because and cozy mysteries and crafting, essentially, because I do love a cozy mystery while I do crafts. I mean, I love audiobooks anyway. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, they're like, you know, I love them. I've always loved having books read to me, even though my grandmother only read the Struwwelise to me. That was the only book we had. And then she got fed up because I knew the words off by heart when I was about 4. And so she just said, oh, you can read it to yourself now. So I used to pretend that I could read and sort of recited the Struwwelise. If you're German, you know that is not the most inspiring book. But yeah, we didn't go to the library until I was in primary school, when I could go by myself. And, you know, so I didn't really have much choice. In kindergarten, we had books, obviously. And in kindergarten, our kindergarten teacher obviously read us loads of books. And I love that. And also one of my friends, her mother was my primary school teacher. And once she was my primary school teacher, she would read to us in class, but also before she would read to us as well. And she was a gifted reader of books. Absolutely brilliant. You know, she could do like not just voices, but she could really like tell it with emotion. And yeah, she could make even the most banal book brilliant. Obviously, as a little one, I just thought she was brilliant. But I absolutely loved having books read out. Once I went to the library, they had audio tapes there, and also you could borrow vinyl. And I used to love borrowing audio tapes. And when I was about 6 or 7, someone gifted me an Alice in Wonderland double cassette audio book. And I would listen to that over and over again. My uncle got me a couple of the famous 5 as well as audiobooks. That's where my love of mystery started. And I listened to those on repeat as well. And thankfully the library had loads of them as well. I mean, I loved to read, but I also loved doing other things. And and I learned knitting and crochet when I was quite little, and I would make things for my stuffed animals, and so I would have like things to do. And so listening to a book while you're like coloring in or painting or drawing was just absolutely brilliant to do, and I loved it, and that love never really gone away. I love an audiobook. And whilst I listen to a vast kind of variety, I listen to a fair bit of non-fiction. When I craft and when I sew or knit, or listen to a book while I do grocery shopping, it's the only way I can grocery shop, listening to an audiobook, then I prefer listening to a mystery. Whilst I can also knit and listen to some non-fiction, I can't do the non-fiction and sewing. For some reason, that just doesn't work. I don't listen intently enough. But if I'm knitting, especially if I'm knitting socks, something that is easy, straightforward, I can just, like knit away and listen to the most complicated things. But if I'm doing sewing or something more complicated, I need a mystery. So I have written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mystery series that I've recently been sort of listening a book to, like a book from the series that I enjoy while doing the things that I like doing. So I thought I'd take you through, and you can recommend me some books if you have some, especially like audio versions, because like not all the mysteries I read have audio versions, and some mysteries I read have terrible audio versions. I'm a bit picky when it comes to audiobooks. I need to enjoy listening to the narrator. So whilst the book itself can be quite bad in a way, if the narrator is good, I don't really mind that much. I will listen to the most naff of mysteries. But none of these are really super naff. They all have something going for them, I would say. So let's get going. The first one is The Library Murders by Mary Allingham. That is the latest in the Flora Steele mystery series by Mary Allingham. And it is set in 1950s Britain. It's just, it's set down in Sussex, in a tiny village called Abbey Mead, fictional. And Flora is a bookshop owner. And she's in her 20s. She inherited a bookshop when her aunt dies, and that's how we meet her. And one day in the first book, she comes to the bookshop, and there's a dead body lying in between some shelves in the back of the shop. There is a crime writer living in the village as well, called Jack Carrington, and they sort of start working together to try and solve the crime, because Flora has to clear her name, because everyone in the village thinks no smoke without a fire, and kind of suspects that Laura had something to do with it. And if you lived in a small place, you know that these kind of rumors, they can linger. Not that there was ever, there was a murder in my village once. Yeah, but never mind. Let's not go into that. But rumors can stick. Yeah. So it's a fact of village life. If you ever lived in one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I really quite like this series. There's a lot of coincidences and things like that, very conveniently done. Sometimes they're maybe not the fairest in terms of you guessing along. But having said that, I like them as an audiobook. I think the narration is quite well done. I'm not sure I would read them as a book. And I find that is quite often the case. If an audio narration is good, it can really elevate the experience. And so yeah, I really enjoy those. Then the next one on the list is The Lady's Guide to Etiquette and Murder by Dianne Freeman. This is about a society lady who is American and married into an English aristocratic family. Her husband died in his mistress's bed the year before, and she's now ready to move on and rents a house in London next to the man who helped her move the body out of the mistress's bed into his own bed to avoid a scandal. And suddenly there are aspersions that she had something to do with the death of her husband. It was declared as a natural death, but now there's aspersions that she may have had a hand in it. So she starts investigating, and her neighbor very kindly helps her. I really like this series. It's very improbable, set in the 19th century, but there's something about the characters. I also really do enjoy a green flag male character in a book, because all too often we have male characters that help female characters in their investigation, and they're just a giant red flag. And and he is, on the whole, I would say, the greenest of green flags, and I quite like that. As I get older, I just I have no time for especially in books that are light. I don't want to have like, ugh, you're essentially needing therapy, mate. Why are you even being interested in someone? Go to therapy first. Obviously it was the 19th century, so maybe not that accessible, but still, do some work on yourself and then come back. So he's not one of those, thankfully. And I like the cast of characters in it. I think it is quite nice to see a female character that actually has some agency. And she definitely has. So she's not buffeted along by events. She takes action for the most part anyway. And I quite like that as well. I really, struggle often with mysteries when the person who's investigating is not actually doing anything, but it's more like only reacting. That can be okay, but I quite like it when someone has agency and says, all right, I'm gonna tackle this head on. So yeah, but I enjoyed the narration. There's several books, I think 6 or so, so there's plenty to listen to. I'm on book 4, I believe, so I have a couple to continue listening to. I listened to them on the Plus catalog, so they were essentially, I always say free. They were not free because I pay for Prime, but it's they were as free is in this situation. Then the Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies by Alison Goodman. That's the first in a series, although no other books have been released yet. And there is no sign of when another book might be released. And, but it doesn't matter because book 1 has one not a super satisfying ending. It has an ending. So you can happily wait for another one. So it's about sisters in Regency, England, and they're unmarried. They're getting on a bit, they're in their late 30s, but, society, right? So, they're spinsters and obviously very much off the marriage market. And they are asked to help a friend of a friend's sister. And that's how it all starts. There is an encounter with a gentleman along the way, and the gentleman will become quite important And yeah, I really quite liked it. There's 3 cases in there, so that is unusual. And I would say at times they're a little bit long-winded, but the narration is really quite good, so I didn't really mind too much. So I hope she sort of changes the long-windedness a little bit if there is another one. But I like the idea of, you know, like using your status and your societal rank to sort of underhandedly or hidden behind closed doors, being able to help women who are less fortunate than you. I quite like that premise of the why. So yeah, quite like those. Then Murder by Candlelight by Faith Martin. Now Faith Martin is a very established mystery writer, but this is a book that is, I believe it is set in the 1950s, just after the war kind of thing, not long after the war. But it also feels sometimes incongruous. It's very hard to distinguish when it is actually set. But I did like it, and I do love a locked room mystery. And this is a locked room mystery par excellence, and it has a very clever solution. I like the 2 main investigators. They were friends in school. She is the vicar's daughter. He is living with his uncle after his parents died. They're now grown up. And there's clearly some sort of attraction, but at the same time also a lot of history between the 2 of them. But they're good friends and they can be quite open and honest with each other. And I quite like that, because whilst there is a little bit of, unbeknownst to them, like a little bit of interest going on between the 2 of them, they're interested but not really aware of it. It is quite nice to have these kind of pals that can just be quite honest with each other. They look out for each other, but they're also quite honest. And yeah, I really enjoyed those. I'm not sure if she's going to write more of them. I mean, she tends to write series. But this is what I would say, out of all the books she's ever written, my favorite. Most of her books, you know, I sort of dip in and out, but they're not my thing. Often, I'm not such a fan of contemporary cozy mysteries. It takes a lot for me to take an interest. I think anything where, you know, like mobile phones and stuff like that play a part is usually not of interest, but there is an exception to the rule, and I will come in a bit. So yeah, but I really do enjoy that one. Then An Assassination on the Agenda by T. Kinsley. That was the most recent one in the Lady and Lady's Maid mystery series, set in Edwardian Britain in a sleepy village in Somerset, and I absolutely adore them. If you don't like quibs, don't go there. There's a quib a minute, and I know a lot of people find that annoying, but I love it. I love this kind of quibby, wordy humor, the play with words. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, I love it. It's like the kid and I, we often talk like that, you know, very quibby humor, also with my husband. So, you know, to me, that is just like a very comforting thing, but I know a lot of people find it annoying. The Lady and Lady's Maid have quite the secretive past of working for the crown. But, you know, I'll let you find out if you haven't read them. But they're really fun, and the narration is absolutely excellent. Probably one of my favorite narrations. They're just brilliant. So yeah, and last but not least is a book series that I have avoided for years, mainly because of its popularity and everyone talking about it. And the premise never really got me. I don't really like contemporary cozy mysteries that much. But in the end, I gave in when they showed up at my library. So literally free audiobooks. And I listened to The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And what can I say? I am hooked. I'm on the second book, and the library has all of them that are out. I know that there is a TV series coming as well. Can't wait now. I heard that Helen Merryn is gonna play Elizabeth, and I mean, yeah, I mean, ever a better casting to be done? I don't know, you know. So again, it is quite quibby. It is a little bit patronizing in places, but the narration is absolutely excellent. I'm not sure how I would feel about this one if I would read it in actual print, but listening to it, yeah, love it. Been listening this morning to it when I went to the grocery shops, yeah, you know, when I did some grocery shopping, and it was perfect, you know, absolutely perfect for that. So yeah, that's the books that I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall speak to you all very, very soon.